Riding once again we go into the crazy thoughts of Tumor Town with Bruce. Today I'm just going to briefly talk about movies, so you get to know a little bit more about me and television. Now, when it comes to TV, I'm pretty much a comedy guy, and not all comedies really suit me, okay? Comedies that I have watched over the years that I like, would be Barney Miller, Cheers, Taxi, uh, Monk, I guess if you kind of consider that somewhat of a comedy. Doc Martin, from the BBC, that kind. Excuse me, that kind of thing. And I'm a PBS junkie. You know, Frontline, Nova, POV, American Masters, Antiques Roadshow, all that sort of stuff. You name it. There's a lot on PBS that I like. Call in the midwife. The old upstairs, downstairs, all that sort of stuff. I'll go for that. That's where my TV taste lies. I'll do sci-fi, now that we're in the streaming world, right? Because I always enjoyed Star Trek, Babylon 5, that kind of thing. And now you really have to kind of see all that in streaming mode. But my wife hates sci-fi, so, I only ever watch that by myself. So when you watch other things, you kind of deal with them. But, I do like, good sci-fi series on television when I find one. As far as movies, well, you go from, Stanley Kubrick on one side as, the pinnacle and Monty Python on the other, right? And then everything in between, right? I mean, what can I say? From comedy, Python, how do you beat the Holy Grail? I mean, honestly, how can you beat the Holy Grail in Life of Brian? I don't see how it's done, you know. And on the dramatic side, how do you beat 2001? How do you beat The Shining? Full Metal Jacket. I don't see how you do it. But I like a lot of other movies. I mean, Galaxy Quest. I mean, come on, that's a freaking classic. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. How do you get any better than that, right? Little Miss Sunshine. Kingpin. These kind of movies. I like the kind of offbeat, sort of comedy, dark things. You know, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love the time wasters, right? The Marvels, the Lord of the Rings, and all that. I would have loved to have been the guy. I always dreamt of making the Lord of the Rings trilogy myself. At one point, I actually, back in when I was in California, I had actually outlined the entire thing as a three-piece film. You know, but back then it was impossible. So I never got to. So, I mean, I think what they did with Lord of the Rings was really, really good. Was it exactly what I would have done? No. But, it's still, for films, it's very entertaining, extremely well done artistically. So, what are you going to do? You go with it, you let it flow, right? So I go for that, not a problem. All the Star Wars, all that sort of stuff, all the Marvel things. I mean, they're eye candy. What are you going to do? Do I get emotionally invested in them? No. But, they're eye candy, and like the Foundation series that's streaming. It's nice, it's done. Is it really true to the book? Nah. But, I'll go for it because what else have I got, right? You do what you got to do. But from a movie standpoint, my wife and I, we really like, a good romantic comedy or a good kind of dark comedy. We don't mind a good documentary or docu-series, you know. As far as dramas, we're not that big into real heavy dramas. I mean, that's just, not our big thing. From a serious standpoint right now, the Attorney Woo, is like one of my wife's favorites, you know. And, so unfortunately, I don't see a lot of movies these days that come out that I find really good and exceptional. But, they're there occasionally. I go and I try to find kind of these oddball foreign films, little French films, Scandinavian films. oddball things. And I find them on occasion that are pretty funny, pretty off the wall, or I can find, a very dark thing like The Field, you know. That was a movie I really liked. My wife hated it, but, I liked it. So, in movies, I'm everywhere. But, that was part of my career path was I wanted to be, the next, Steven Spielberg or, Stanley Kubrick. That's what I wanted to be. Spielberg, some of his movies, I love Close Encounters. E.T. never really did it for me, but, I'm always kind of a hit or miss with Spielberg, what are you going to do? But, so from a movie standpoint, I kind of draw that whole thing one way or another. My friends who are all, real sci-fi geeks hate to talk to me about those movies because I nitpick them to death, from a technical standpoint. You couldn't do that. That's not real. That's such a jump of faith, all that they get crazy and don't even want to talk to me anymore. So, but, those are the kind of things that I like to gravitate to. And, the weirder the movies, kind of the better they are for me, But it is what it is. And, I'm sure there's people out there who, hate a lot of the Stanley Kubrick movies, and I absolutely adore them. I mean, what can you say? I mean, I like them all. So that's it for me on the movies. I don't know how much more detailed I could get other than, a great list of, loved it, hate it, whatever. But, like Brazil, what a great movie, right? But then again, that's one of the Python guys, right? Terry Gilliam. I love the Gilliam films. They have such a richness and a feel to them. They're just wonderful, wonderful little films. So, it just kind of depends, But, figured I'd throw that out there so somebody could always at least say, oh, this guy goes from Kubrick to Monty Python. Oh, okay, I get it. So that's kind of me in a little bit of a nutshell. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll go on to other things. If I think of more weird things to say about who I am and whatever, we'll throw them in the mix later. But for now, that'll have to do. All right, catch you later. Peace, and hang 10.